Today in math, we're doing lesson 15.5. 15.5 starts on page 883. And in this lesson, we're going to divide rectangles into equal squares. So the keyword here is equal squares. We want to take a big rectangle, and we want to try to make some squares inside that are as equal as possible. And after we do that, we're going to be counting the squares, and then we're going to be making equations. So you have seen something like this before. In the beginning of the year, we talked about arrays, and that's really what you're doing is you're creating an array. Remember when we talked about arrays, we talked about columns. Columns go up and down. So these lines aren't the columns here, but the columns are actually what we drew the lines in order to create. And then you also have rows, and rows go sideways. And after you create these equal squares, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute, you're going to count them. What I love about arrays is I know that this row is the same as this row, is the same as this row, is the same as this row. So I can use skip counting to help me count. So if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the top row, I can count 5, 10, 15, 20. You can go ahead and count all of the squares and double check that your answer is right. But if you can skip count, that's a quick way to count all of these squares. And then we're going to make equations. So just like we did with the arrays, we're going to make equations that are repeated addition. So the first one that I just did when I counted by fives was I did 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. And before I write my answer, I'm going to go ahead and check it again just by skip counting 5, 10, 15, 20. So the other one I can do is I can count by column. So in each column, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. So I can count 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. And that will have the same answer. That will also have the sum of 20. So how do you divide these rectangles into equal squares? So I found that a ruler is really handy for this because if I measure on this, each of these lines going in my rows is about every 2 centimeters. So here I've got 2, 4, 6. Again, I'm counting by twos, and I'm going to keep going until I get until I get to the bottom. And then I can go ahead and draw the line across. And I love using my ruler for this too because it makes my lines nice and straight. And what I'm doing is I'm going to the mark that I just made and I'm going across. And again, I'm going to do that for my column. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to line it up with the 0 line. I'm going to say 2, 4, 6, 8. And you can see it's actually not exactly even, and that's okay. This will still give me about the same answer. So you can see, let's go ahead and try a different rectangle that has not been separated for us yet. Oh, this one they've started separating for us, so let's go ahead and use this. Usually I would give you little squares just like these, but you don't have these square tiles at home, so it makes it hard. But I feel like with a ruler, it's actually easier than with the square tiles anyway. So again, I'm going to line up my 0 line, and I'm going to mark every 2 centimeters, 2, 4. Notice it's not exactly the same, but that's okay. And then I'm going to draw a line going across. If you want to make these lines straight, you can also line them up with the lines that are going up and down on your ruler, and that will help make sure actually that your horizontal lines are straight too. And now I'm going to do the same thing as best I can. I know my book is making it a little bit difficult for me to do this. So I'm going to do every 2 centimeter. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And you can see that square at the end is a little bit small, but that's okay. I'll still get a pretty precise answer. And then I can count. So this says count by rows. Remember rows go sideways. Also notice there's 1, 2, 3 spaces. If I started counting by columns, I would run out of room after more than 3. So I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if there is 6 in the first row, I know that there are 6 in the second row and 6 in the third row. And if you are not an expert at counting by sixes, that's okay, because you can actually count each and every single square in order to find the sum. Then when I'm doing columns, I'm going up and down. And I can count 1, 2, 3. And hooray! I can just keep writing 3 all the way across until I get to the equal sign. And now I'm going to write the sum. And the sum for the rows should be the same as the sum for the columns. So hopefully you have an idea of how to do this. You've got 2 more rectangles to divide into equal squares. Go ahead and use your ruler. Then you're drawing your own rectangle that's divided into 6 equal squares down here. And on the back, they've actually got some drawn for you. So that'll make it a little easier. So I hope you have a great day and get your math and science time. Take care.